What's up, Quarter Pounders? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Wave Potter, and today I have a website request from a big fan TC. So thank you so much for making this request on my website. The link is always below to my website where you can make requests of videos I will make. No monthly commitment like over on Patreon. And this happens to be by one of my favorite people on YouTube. It's Yoyoka, and it's called How to Shooting the Video of Drum Cover. So I guess it's showing her process for how she puts together her drum covers. So I'm really excited about this. I always love learning from other artists, learning their process, because I'm always trying to improve myself, and I'm sure there's some little gems in there of things that I can learn for myself. So I'm really excited to see this. Just a quick heads up, this is a reaction and analysis video, so I will be pausing, but if you just want to watch the original video, go support the original artist's channel. That said, if you're excited to see this, pound that like button, subscribe and ring that buddy bell, and if this is your first time here, I started playing drums when I was 2 years old. I went on to become a multi-instrumentalist and play in many bands, and now I like to make one-man band covers and watch other musicians play music, react, analyze, and break it down.
Break it down.
So let's do it.
はい、では最初は曲を選びます。曲を選ぶときは CD や iTunes や YouTube で動画を
So this is interesting. When she's selecting a cover, she goes to her iTunes library, classic way of listening to music.
それでかっこいいのとかを選んでます。
So she chooses a song that's cool, that sounds the coolest to her. That's really interesting.
私のお気に入りのレッド・ツェッペリンはお母さんとかお父さんはあんまり知らなかったんだけど、
Wow.
ヨヨが自分で探して
Okay, it seems like she has a very mature sense of music taste, so it's surprising to me to learn that she's the one that selected these songs. She said her favorite Led Zeppelin song she did, her parents didn't even know about it before. So there goes my theories of, her parents guiding her into great music taste. It seems like a lot of her great music taste is just completely natural music she found on her own. And that's really cool, just based on what sounds the coolest to her, what sounds the most fun to play. I love
で
that.
かっこいいなと思ったから叩きました。はい、では曲を選んだらこのイヤホンに音を流してもらって、とりあえず一緒に合わせて叩いてみて、そして終わってわからないところとかあったらもう一回 CD とかまた
Cool. I would guess the key first is picking songs she already loves that she's familiar with, because that's the first step in learning a song, is obviously listening to it a lot, becoming familiar with all the ins and outs, the structure and everything. That makes it so much easier to learn the song behind the kit. Otherwise, if you're doing something like trying to play a song you've just heard for the first time, it's extremely difficult to just sit behind the kit, listen, and try to learn it as you go. But again, she's picking her favorite songs that she likes and that sound cool to her. In that way, she's able to just sit down behind the kit, play along with it, and like she said here, if there's any parts she can't figure out on the first playthrough, she just re-listens to it, listens to the parts that are a little trickier, sounds them out, figures them out, and proceeds to nail it.
私は楽譜が読めないので音を何回も聞いて覚えてで
Okay, that's what I was just talking about. Re-listening to the song over and over again.
自分で考えたものを入れたり
That's cool. So she arranges the song and incorporates her own elements into it. That's what I love as well, is like she can play perfect copies of the song she's doing, but she also spices it up with her own elements, her own touch. Really makes it stand out.
しています。はい。では、曲を覚えたら次はいよいよ動画を撮るんですけど、その時に使うカメラが3つあります。そして、
Three cameras she uses.
1つ目
This is the
の、
first one.
カメラです。これは
Oh, it's a Canon.
メインのカメラになってます。
Is this a 5D?
では次のカメラ。
All right, so as I've talked about before, one of my jobs other than this is as a videographer for weddings. And so this is one of the cameras I use. I don't use it very often anymore, but I'm trying to see. Okay, no, this isn't the same camera. This is a 5D Mark III. I'm very curious what this camera is though, and what the lens size is. It looks like it's probably a pretty wide angle lens, like a 24 or something, or a 35. Very curious. But
では次のカメラです。はい、これは足元を撮っています。
Oh, cool. So that records her
そして
feet.
この3つ目のカメラは
And the third camera?
から全体を撮っています。で、ガムテープとかいっぱい買ってるんですけど、
A lot of
これ
tape?
は
That's
弟の
funny.
指導が5回ぐらいパタッパタッパタッバチャって
To repair the damages caused by my little brother.
ちょっと貼っています。でも
That's awesome.
使ってます。はい、では次は録音するときはこのマイクを使ってるんですけど、マイクの数が全部で11本あります。では一つ一つ
11 microphones?
はい、
Wow.
ではマイクです。このマイクはこの一番小さいタムを録音しています。はい、では次、隣のこれは次に大きいやつを
She's got each of her toms mic'd. And I like the angle on the tom because it's pretty close to the edge here, you can see, which gets a lot of the transient sounds, the poppies, but it also is slightly angled toward the center to get the resonant, more beefy tone out of the toms. And just a couple inches away from the
こ
head.
うなっちゃうと、これ
Very cool.
これはこのフロータムって言って一番
Nice. Yeah, and you see this one is really pointed toward, like, because where the microphone's pointed affects what kind of tone it picks up. The more it's pointed toward the center, the more the tone is going to be resonant and like the lower mid tones of the drum. The closer it is to the edge, the more of the transient, high-pitched poppy sounds it's going to get. Although, point it towards the center will get more of the stick noise because that's usually where you hit with your stick. So it's kind of a delicate balance to strike when you're setting up your tom microphones or any of the drum mics to get exactly the sound you want. Because microphone placement affects the sound a lot.
を録音しています。次はこのバスドラのマイクです。バスドラのマイクは2個ついています。
This kind of illustrates exactly what I was just talking about. Having two mics on the kick drum, one inside to pick up more of the beater sound, the higher frequency pop of the kick drum, and then this will pick up more of the resonance of the kick drum, the deeper frequencies, and you blend them together perfectly while you're mixing, and you have a kick drum tone that is beefy and huge, but also cuts through the mix with the higher, like 3500 to 4K, 10K, anywhere in there, that frequency range to give it that nice snap.
そして中のバスドラのマイクはビーターのバチバチっていう音を取っています。そしてこの
Oh yeah, she's
外側の方は
talking about what I just
ブーン
said.
っていう音を取っています。それを
There we go
混ぜ合わせて取っています。
It's so cool that she knows about all this stuff. What was she here? 9? That she knows how all this stuff works at such a young age. That's really cool.
はい。
So this is stuff that took me 28 years to figure out.
マイクです。スネアのマイクの本数が
3 mics for the
つ
snare.
いています。
Wow.
一番上のマイクはパーンっていう音を取っていて、この真ん中にあるマイクはボーンっていう音を取っていて、この下のマイクはこのスナッピーのジャラジャラっていう音を取っていて、
Very
こ
cool.
の3つの音を混ぜ合わせてスネアの音を作っています。では
Wow. So she basically just talked about the same thing I talked about with the kick drums, how all of the sounds blend together to create exactly the sound you want. Like the top will have your stick sound, your top head sound, more of the higher mids. The bottom will have the snare fizzy sound, more of the really high frequencies, and then the body of the drum will have more of the lower tones, low mids. But I've never seen someone mic the middle of their tom or the middle of their snare like that before, the actual shell. And that's such a clever idea. I want to try that just to see what kind of sound I can get out of it. It's very interesting.
次はハイハットのマイクです。
And a hi-hat mic. Personally, I just recently started doing this, but I don't mic any of my cymbals right now. I just mic my drums because, the cymbals cut through, they bleed into all the mics anyway, and you can always hear them, so I don't typically mic my hi-hat. I used to do overheads. I used to do 2 stereo overheads, but there were always phasing issues because, they're different distances away from each drum. So even if you have them centered over the snare, you'll still have phasing issues with the cymbals and with the toms. So then I switched to one overhead, which, just picked up the whole kit together, which I really liked doing, but I found that I liked the sound better when I only used the individual mics on the drums because it gave beefier tom sound, beefier snare sound, and the cymbals really were already coming through in the mix. I don't know. I'm always trying to adjust my setup. I'll see what Yoyoka talks about for overhead mics.
iPad のマイクはここ上から撮っています。そしてこのマイクはこれかぶさるのでそのチッっていう音を全体を撮っています。で最後の2つ
Alright, here
ここ
we
で
go. Oh, so this is a clever way to deal with the phasing issues, is having your mics in the exact same spot, but facing different ways. And the only reason I've never tried this is because you need one of these fancy stands. What's it called? Like a Y clip or X clip? I don't remember what it's called, but one of these cool stands. I kind of want to try this, because that solves the phasing issue. And you get a nice stereo. You're able to pan them to get a stereo sound to your kit.
ここにつけられてるんですけど、このマイクはこっちの音の全体を取っていて、こっちのマイクはここら辺の、全体の音を取っています。
Cool. Maybe I'll make a video in the future experimenting with different microphone setups, like trying out different overhead setups, different techniques for making the snare body, shell, and stuff like that. I only have, I think, 6 microphone inputs on my Snake that runs from my drum cage over to my computer sound card, so I don't think I could have 11 mics going at the same time. Anyway, it would be fun to experiment with the stuff I have and just seeing the best sound I can get.
はい、そしてこのドラムの周りにあるものが超音材といって、
Nice.
オーラルソニックさんっていう会社が
Sonic.
作っています。で、
Those are
この
important.
超音材っていうものは響きを良くしたり、音を
So these are basically the same material that I have back here. These are sound absorption panels. They absorb the sound that's in the room to prevent echo. Then I have these other panels back here. Here, I'll go to full screen so you can see them for a sec. These are diffusers. They stop the sound from bouncing back and forth between two walls. So instead, it bounces in all different directions and it doesn't completely deaden the sound, but it keeps it from echoing too much. So it really helps with controlling the sound of the room without killing the sound. But these help absorb some of the sound. I have 2 on each wall just to help absorb some of the sound. If they were everywhere, it would deaden it. You can see those in the back of my drum cage too. I think I have 2 of those in my drum cage. Then I have some more on the ceiling, like little ones. But those sound absorption panels are where it's at. Studio foam is absolutely worthless, useless. Don't buy it. It doesn't really absorb anything. Either get dense material like these sound absorption panels or diffusers. And diffusers are super easy to make yourself. So are these absorption panels. You just get a bunch of towels and, fold them into a wood frame and wrap it in some kind of fabric using the wood frame to keep it steady and secure. That works really well. Someone made a video about that if you just look up homemade sound absorption panels. And diffusers are super easy too because pretty much any objects you have in your house that are not flat or shaped differently, books are awesome. Anything really is great to diffuse sound if it's just around the room. But anyway, this is a huge tangent. But hopefully it sums up sound absorption if you're thinking of treating a room for sound.
そしてこのゴムマットの下に敷いているものも、オーラルソニックさんの
This is an important
ド
part
ラ
too.
ムスコッというもので、ドラムスコッのものは、そのドラムで振動ってあるじゃないですか。その振動を少なくしてくれます。
So like she said, this is used to minimize the vibration, especially if you're playing on concrete floors. This is a huge problem no one thinks about when they're considering whether they want to play the drums or getting a drum kit is if a drum set is on concrete or any kind of hard surface, when you hit them, they vibrate. and when they vibrate, they slide. You don't want your drums moving away from you as you play them. I've had that problem in the past, I think in a past live stream, because my drums were on concrete, and I started streaming before I thought about it, just a long time ago. Anyway, you don't want that problem. You want to either be on carpet or something like this that will absorb the vibration and keep stuff from sliding away. The biggest culprit is the kick drum, because not only are you hitting it to make the sound, but the beater is pushing it away from you. So if it's not secured by carpet or something that kills the vibration like this, it'll just keep moving away from you every time you kick it. So that's why I used to keep mine against a wall, so it just had nowhere to go. Now I have it on a rug, so it stays in the right place. And you also can use the legs on the sides of the kick drum, dig those into the carpet to kind of anchor it in. Because like stuff like this, rubber mat and stuff is very expensive. So, I like to do things on a budget. And carpet, nice rugs work just fine.
はい、そしてそれぞれのマイクから取った音はこのプロツールズというソフトに
so she uses Pro Tools.
いきます。はい、それではちょっとマイクチェックをしています。最初は一つ一つ音とか音程とかを確認するんです。その
She verifies the mic levels here
叩いています。
of each mic and then overall. Look how the camera's bouncing. What a boss drum pattern to just play as a mic test. Wow. Just out of nowhere.
はい、ではちょっとマイク
That was awesome.
このマイクチェックでこの全体は最初さっきも言ったように一つ一つやったので、その後全体でマイクでどうやって撮れてるかとか。
Like she's talking about here, verifying the levels is very important because you need to make sure none of the mics clip, because drums are very loud. When you have drums mic'd, you have the microphones turned down very low. You don't want any clip when you hit the things. You need the gain as high as possible without clipping, but with a drum, it's going to be pretty low gain. Because once it clips digitally, it ruins the sound of whatever you're doing. So getting it in the right spot, because if you have it too low, then you'll have noise from just the electronic sound card. There's always a little bit of noise, so if you have to turn it up too much, you'll get noise under your, just a hissing. And if it's too loud, you'll get clipping. So you got to find the perfect mic volume to avoid both of those things.
その全体での音。はい。で今撮った音とドラムの音とその曲を合体させるんですけど、その今撮ったドラムの音がこっちです。はい、こんな感じです。はい。で、動画の方はこのファイナルカットというものでやっています。そして
Cool. Pro Tools and Final Cut. I don't use either of those.
斜めく撮った正面のところにあったカメラで、これが後ろにあった後ろから全体
Murder by Numbers.
ところのカメラの。
That's cool. Shows her project here. Very interesting. I've never used Final Cut. I use Adobe Premiere, but it looks like kind of similar. You got your parameters, and it looks like you can set keyframes and stuff. That's cool.
これが足のところに撮ってるカメラで、この3つのカメラが見えるようになっています。はい、そしてさっきのプロツールズの音とこのファイナルカットの動画を合体させて、それを YouTube に上げてます。簡単な
Right there, what she just talked about is a question I get all the time, is how do you get the drums to sound so good with the video? Or how do you make a multi-instrumental song with all the different instruments and video and get it to sound so good together? And a lot of people think, we're taking the sound from the camera device and mixing it all together. But no, we record everything separately into, like she was using Pro Tools, into some kind of digital audio workstation or DAW, and then you can mix it to sound very good. So you record it high quality separately from the video. Then you take the videos, you line them up with that final mix. And that's how it sounds so good.
この曲だと2日ぐらいで3回叩いたら覚えたり終わるんですけど
Wow. Usually you learn easy songs after about 3 tries. That's cool.
難しいポリスとか
If it's a difficult song like Good Times, Bad Times or Murder by Numbers, it usually takes a lot longer to learn that.
がかかってしまったんですけど
Makes sense.
頑張って覚えたりしました。はい、ではまたかっこいい曲探していろんな曲をまた叩いてみた動画であげるのでぜひ楽しみにしててください。はい、参考になりましたか？
I did enjoy the
私
video.
も
That
最
was
初
awesome.
は iPhone とか iPad で撮ってたので皆さんも気軽に撮ってみてください。ちなみに
Yes, I love what she said there, that you don't need all this fancy stuff. You don't need 3 camera angles. You don't need a really nice Canon camera to get started. Start using an iPhone. Up until a couple of months ago, I was using an iPhone to film. Yeah, it didn't look amazing. People helped me figure out different ways to make it look better, like turning off all the auto adjust stuff so the picture was more consistent, because you don't want your white balance and your aperture and your ISO changing while you're recording and the whole video is like changing throughout, not consistent. Anyway, what I'm saying is you don't need really fancy stuff to start recording, to start putting yourself out on YouTube. Just start with what you got, do the best you can. It's all practice. Like, I've been making videos for years and years and years, and that was all practice for what I'm doing now. That's how I learned my skills with video editing. That's how I learned my skills with sound mixing. Even though I have much to improve, starting is the only way to get where you want to go. You know, starting to work toward your goal, making little improvements with every video, because eventually your videos become great because every video you're improving a little bit more. So yeah, if you want to get started doing stuff like this, drum covers or any kind of covers, any kind of videos, really just get started. I love that she mentioned that.
ヨイカのドラム講座は
By the way, this portion of Yoyoka drum lesson is recorded completely using an iPod.
はい、では
Really?
ヨ
Wow.
イカのドラム講座28を終わりますバイバイ
Love it. That was really interesting. Thank you so much. A big fan TC. That's what they put in their thing. That's what I'm calling them. But that was a lot of fun. I feel like I learned a lot. And hopefully I was able to explain in more detail a lot of the things that she was talking about. So yeah, that's where I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much to all my patrons. Thank you so much to a big fan TC for making this request. Yeah, if you want your own request, you can either join my Patreon or go to my website below where you can make requests for no monthly commitment. Otherwise, that's where I'm going to wrap it up. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.